to Newsmakers. I'm your host, Lisa Oligas. In this edition, we delve into the world of artful medicine, a concept that has a surprisingly long history, but one that is exploding with new research and collaboration. Artful medicine in layman's terms is art's power to enrich patient care. MSSU will host an Artful Medicine Symposium October 19th through the 21st. Today, we talk to the coordinators of the event about how art and medicine are connected and how humanizing the science of medicine can make a difference to all of us experiencing medical treatment. Joining us to get the discussion started are Dr. Christine Bentley, MSSU Professor of Art History and a conference co-chair, and Dr. Amber Minnert, MSSU Associate Professor of Art and Art Education. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, you all have been involved for several years in this project, in this research of artful medicine. For those who might not understand exactly what it is we're talking about, give us an idea of what this means when you're talking about researching this connection, and is it really just going back to the anatomical drawings, or is it much more than that now?
Well, currently, our research is going back to some of the original drawings that you might find in all the way back to the Egyptian period, the ancient Greeks, the ancient Romans, where they would use art as a means to record and to document disease, to record and document the treatment of disease. And so art really served a very purposeful function in that context. Today, certainly art still serves that function, but we are finding that making a connection between the humanities and medicine, specifically in our research, the visual arts and medicine, that we're able to use art images, and through art history and through art education and different visual thinking strategies, that we're able to train those within the medical fields and the health sciences to look at art very similar to how a physician might look at and analyze a patient during treatment, sort of pulling apart various elements of the work of art, and by looking at it very carefully, enhancing their observational skills, their analytic skills, and their critical thinking skills.
So it's one of those things we always used to think, oh, art class. It's for those who may not be science-minded, but that's not true at all. There is a connection. Now, you're calling this, Amber, this event, the Bridging Humanities. So art medicine, artful medicine, bridging. Why put that in that terminology, bridging humanities?
Well, one of the things we've talked about in art is when you look and observe something, you're finding evidence, you're looking for things that will enhance the image and what brings you to those critical thinking skills and what is important in that image per se, if you're looking at an image, and the evidence that you find in that image that tells you what it's about. In science, in the scientific method, you're also looking at say your patient, and you're looking for evidence, you're looking for things in that patient's prognosis to tell you what is wrong with the patient. So in both cases, you're observing what's in front of you, and then you're looking for information, something concrete that will help you move forward. So when you're using art to increase those observational skills, then you can apply that also to the patient. So,
which is pretty amazing to think that, one observation skill will help in the medical world. Everybody seems to think it would be x-ray scans, that technology is what it's all about. How important is it that it creates that human relationship between a physician and a patient, and how does it inspire them to be maybe more connected to the patient?
Well, studies have shown through the medical humanities specifically, and some of the research that we have read through, that having more, improving your observational skills they have found in research that basically what it's doing is it's increasing levels of empathy, specifically in minority and female patients.
Wow.
So dealing with minority and gender.
So now you have a bunch of presenters and you've had a call for papers. Tell us a little bit about what you've received, from where in the country these are coming, and what kinds of ideas are going to be shared at the symposium.
Well, I'll talk a little bit about the ideas. Some of the areas that we are going to have presenters are things like art therapy and movement, and that's really where my area is. I've been doing research in art and mindfulness for several years and presenting on that. There's also art and equity in medicine and the humanities. We're going to be looking at art and, you'll have to help me out here just a little bit, art and historical. Medical education, historical perspectives in the past, design, innovation. So we have a lot of different areas where medicine touches on the humanities. And then I'm going to let Christine talk about the different papers that have come in from the different locations.
Said they've come from very high-level institutions.
Yeah, so we were very excited. Our group was wanting very much so to connect with colleagues across the country that are working within the medical humanities, and specifically, I mean, not even specific to the visual arts, because we feel like we want to expand our own knowledge and research. So we did a national call for papers, and we've had submissions, abstract submissions from Ivy League, Big Ten, regional, state, and local schools. So we do have confirmed presenters from Harvard, from Stanford, from Princeton, from UMKC, from WashU in St. Louis, from the Kemper Museum, and also from Columbia University. We have a couple that are also, regional. We're also very excited about, from Crowder and from MSU. So we have a wide variety, but we are really pleased that we have such a national showing of presenters that will be here on campus and in Joplin in October.
Is this a blossoming field of study, the idea of artful medicine and the humanities? And I know you did a TED Talk. You talked about numbers of institutions having classes. Is this a growing area of interest?
Yeah, absolutely. In the past 20 years, if not even the past 10, I think it was about 25 years ago that Yale University really started establishing these medical arts observation courses, because they found that in their medical classes, looking at the very valuable medical illustrations, they weren't thinking through them the way that they wanted them to, and so that stepping out of the box was helpful. And since, I would say, in the past 10 to 15 years, if not really, I should go down to 5 years, the past 5 years, we've seen just an increase, a dramatic increase, maybe 2-3-fold, in universities that are not only have these types of classes on campus that are required for their medical and health science students, but that are requiring it as part of their curriculum.
That's great. So you talk about the skills of observation, and you in your TED Talk talked about visual training. Is that part of classwork? Is it curriculum that could be developed from something like this, or is already being developed?
Yeah, maybe let Dr. Minter speak on that, because she is more trained in VTS than I am.
Yeah, so VTS is visual thinking strategies that were developed by the Museum of Modern Art in New York City about 20 to 30 years ago. And they were used, it is used in the classroom with K-12 students, and then also in the college classroom. And what we've found is that VTS, or this visual thinking strategies, is really about observational skills and developing observational skills. And once you make that observation in an artwork, and observational skills in artwork, once you make that observational skill, you have to back it up with evidence. And once you back it up with evidence, you don't just stop there, you have to ask what's next. And as I was mentioning before, that is part of the scientific method as well. So you're building on these skills of looking deeper, finding details, going beyond just seeing something and actually looking at something. And I would hope that if I was a patient and somebody had me opened up and they were operating, that they weren't just seeing my insides, but they were truly looking. Or if they were looking at the different things that I was coming in and complaining about, they didn't just see it as a blanket idea, but they were looking for the evidence to determine what might be wrong with me.
So part of this research, you've created a database of images that might even look like an art collection, actually. But tell us about this database and how that can be helpful for others and making comparisons and learning from it.
Yeah, I've been collaborating with others in Indiana, Wabash College, and then a private scholar in Indianapolis. And so initially we started a database by just looking at medical images, medical art images, and some of them, then we started developing a database where we have images, some of them traditional canonical images that we've seen many times, where we have assigned a diagnosis or a disease to it. Some of it others had prescribed, and then we are just tagging it, or else we've come to our own conclusions. So for example, Michelangelo's Night sculpture, certainly we don't think that he was purposely representing breast cancer, but we can see from a modern lens looking backward that some of these figures, that one in particular, do show disease. And it's really interesting to look back and sort of reanalyze them from that perspective.
I mean, from the painters of the past and the artists, they may not have realized a deformity or something like that, but now we know what it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it can even tell us the history of such a disease if we know it existed.
Yeah, absolutely. We're hopeful. Our current research project as a group is we're hopeful to expand on this database just from image and disease to having image disease, but a art and medicine case study for each, where we have the art educator, art historian, and then those from medicine all coming together to create a larger analysis of the image. So
quite an interesting field. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll hear about the keynote speakers for the symposium and other ways art has a role in medicine. Welcome back to Newsmakers, where we are bringing focus to artful medicine and a big event coming to the MSSU campus. Dr. Christine Bentley is back with us, and joining the conversation is Dr. Donna Johnson, MSSU Professor of Biology and Environmental Health. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And welcome back. Thank you. So let's talk about these keynote speakers. Donna, I know you have been involved in that. Tell us about, one is Renee Nicholson, and I read that she talks about dance and illness. How does that work out?
Oh, we're so delighted that she is going to honor us and come to our symposium. Her name is Renee Nicholson. She's the director for the Center of Humanities at West Virginia University, which, by the way, is a land-grant university in West Virginia. She is most notably a writer and she wrote a series of essays concerning the AIDS victims and AIDS patients and cancer patients in the Appalachia. This was in a collaboration with West Virginia University School of Medicine. She won several accommodations for that. She has a couple of books of poetry. She also has a book concerning dance and illness. She's a celebrated teacher, researcher, an admired advisor, and we're just thrilled that she's coming to our symposium.
So we've been talking about art maybe from the image perspective, but physically, I mean, dance is something that is sort of almost like yoga and other forms of, can it be healing? And is there a connection to medicine that she'll be discussing?
Oh, I'm certain, because that is her area of research. You know, and she's a creative writer, and she's been able to capture so much of this in her essays.
All right. So let's also talk about, there's another keynote speaker going to be involved, and that's at the end of the session?
Correct.
The symposium. Who's that?
That is Dr. Angela Pierce, and I have to preface this with saying she's a Missouri Southern graduate.
Yes, an alum.
Yes, so she graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Biochemistry and Bachelor of Arts in Spanish. She then went to Palmer Chiropractic School and earned her PhD in neuroscience at UMKC. She is now the Assistant Dean to the Whole Health Integration School of Medicine, the Alice Walton School of Medicine in Bentonville, Arkansas. So she will be here on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. October 21st. Yes. So we're excited to have her. Her primary role as the assistant dean is developing the curriculum that incorporates the whole health approach, whole body approach. And in doing so, she incorporates the humanities. And she's a strong proponent of complementary and alternative medicine. So again, we're delighted that she will be joining us as well.
So we have national speakers, and then we also have a lot of papers from across the nation discussing these concepts. You two have actually traveled to Italy, which you say is kind of at the heart of what artful medicine and the study is about. Tell us a little about that, Christine.
Yes, we've had the opportunity and really the pleasure to travel to Italy together twice for a class called Art and Anatomy in Italy. I have since done it a third time with Dr. Victoria Rhodes. Same thing, it was just a pleasure to do. But the basic premise of the class is to expose the students both to art, specifically art history, and then medicine. And so they study both Renaissance culture, specifically Renaissance artists, because it is during the Renaissance that we see a lot of these anatomical drawings emerge, because it's right during the time that modern medicine itself sort of takes hold and grounds itself. But we do all kinds of really wonderful and exciting explorations during that trip. We prep prior with assignments and readings, and then we're on the trip. And I'll let Dr. Johnson tell you a little bit about what happens during the trip.
Oh, during the trip. It's a wonderful experience for the students. And, you know, it opens their mind. It really is mind opening for them. But we visit several of the large cities. Maybe the highlight for the trip for me is our day trip to Bologna, where we visit the first school of medicine, and you know, we actually are in the theater where they perform dissections, and it's just really thrilling. And the students, you know, we watch them, we kind of transform. At first they're real shy and scared and nervous, and they just really embrace, you know, a different culture and learning how to travel and move around the cities. You know, it's really an experience for them. A maturation process is what it is.
So you come to this from the world of biology and environmental health. How is that different when Christine's coming from the world of art? So does it open your eyes in a different way as someone from the science side of things?
Oh, definitely. Christine has taught me there's a difference between looking and seeing. I should have known that, but she definitely has, you know, I look at everything differently now. And I can say probably my observational skills have improved through this process. I now am very meticulous when I look at something and study something, whether it's, you know, a piece of art or colors to paint my living room.
Yeah.
And I would say I've also really blossomed when it comes to medicine. I mean,
Really?
I would have never guessed that I would be doing anything to combine art and medicine 10 years ago. And so I've been teaching not only the art and anatomy in Italy class, but also the medical art observation course, which I know was inspired by Dr. Johnson and Dr. Lemons and others when they came together to find out what do we want these pre-meds to do when they come here.
Right.
But that itinerary in Italy is just, you know, a wonderful experience because we're doing both the traditional art, visiting the traditional art sites, but also going to some really amazing medical sites and learning about medicine and the history of medicine and medical objects and anatomy. So it's
Finding how the two are connected.
and connecting the two, absolutely.
Do you foresee curriculums that could be created after a symposium like this? You know, what we learned from this and the exchange of ideas.
Yes, we just last week, fingers crossed, submitted as a group to include faculty across campus, as advised by Dr. Lemons, who originally proposed a medical humanities certificate or major here at MSSU. And it is one that is very much so marketable, whether students go on to get careers, if within the field, or they go on to grad school. So we just submitted a National Endowment for Humanities, Humanities Connections grant last week with the hope that as a group, and we have faculty coming from art, Professor Pishker is part of that, from art history, art education, Dr. Mintert, biology, Dr. Johnson, but English, which is Dr. Zach Watson, psychology, Dr. Holly Hackett, sociology, Dr. Ree Wells Lewis. So faculty from across the campus, again, working with the goal to combine the humanities and medicine and to provide that and to explore courses and curriculum to, you know, bring this
Facilitate
to
that
the region. Yeah.
Yes.
And I was going to let Dr. Johnson add to that if.
Yes, I mean, when you think about studying the humanities, it's such a deep, thoughtful process. And then there's such meticulous analysis of literature and art. Any discipline that has problem solving in it, and what discipline doesn't, right, could benefit from the humanities. Because
Well, I read it could even benefit criminal justice
yeah,
to have.
problem solving.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, anything that involves observational skills and enhancing psychology as well. And with that medical humanities certificate, we would also have outside consult by Renee Nicholson, our keynote. She has agreed to be a part of this team, as well as Dr. Morton, who's in Indiana. So
Excellent. Well, thank you both for sharing all this information.
Yes.
We appreciate you being here, and good luck with the symposium.
thank you.
Thank you.
When we come back, details of an art show that will coincide with the Artful Medicine Symposium and more when we return. Medical professionals and students interested in attending the symposium can find registration information online. Search for MSSU Artful Medicine Symposium or check out this link. We're back on this Newsmakers. We are delving into the world of artful medicine, a concept being studied across the nation and which will be the focus of a symposium in October here on the campus of MSSU. Joining our conversation now are Frank Pischker, Professor of Art and Department Chair of Art and Design here at MSSU, and Amira Bagrzadeh, the Assistant Professor of Art and Design. Thank you both for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So, Frank, last year you helped coordinate this big event, this symposium.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about its history and how you see it as expanding.
Well, we originally planned on having it spring of 2020, and that did not happen because of the pandemic. So we had a keynote speaker lined up and hope everything really packaged, ready to go, and about 2 months out we had to cancel it. And that year we were focusing on being a campus-only sort of event. So then we had already had a plan for the following year, and that was to bring in Dr. Bentley and some of her colleagues. They would be the keynote for the second year. That got canceled as well. So then when we finally were able to have it last year, we went back, started off from scratch. We brought back the original presenter, Dr. Sean Cruze from Texas Tech. And then instead of bringing in Dr. Bentley as a keynote, we've actually expanded the event quite a bit and brought in some of her research interests and her whole sort of cohort to really make this a nationwide event. So our call for papers went national, and we've got, guest presenters from mostly regional, but certainly outside the Joplin area.
Well, Amira, you will be presenting a workshop or a session. Tell us a little about what you are going to be talking about, because it's talking about design and innovation, and that's really interesting compared to what we've been talking about of just the process of observation. It's neat to think about it being part of design as well.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting for me. So we got many abstracts that they cover the design part in relation to medical approaches. So something that is interesting here is that no matter if it is like the graphic part of the design or in the design process as a part of like making an application for medical services or designing a class or a course based on art and how it can help students to improve their empathy. So there has been all these different correlations between medical practices and engineering practices and how they relate to design and design process. So part of what is going to be covered in that session consider that aspect of design, how it is kind of something that happens everywhere. It doesn't matter what the field is, it's kind of interdisciplinary and can covers everything.
So let's talk a little about art itself in the realm of medical facilities. And in, we think about, we've been talking about observation, but earlier with the other folks, and there are clinics that are very sterile otherwise, but art has been introduced as, whether it's wall hanging, wall paintings. How do you think that is important, and why do you think that works, Frank?
Well, I don't understand why it works, but
Just
that
does.
would be more the psychology wing. But one of the sessions we had last year at the Symposium was a roundtable presentation on the healing powers of art. And there are studies where if you're in a more pleasant sort of environment, one impacted by art, your healing rate increases. And so it's not a shock that we have a lot of places taking advantage of that data and upping their game and making it a more comfortable sort of experience. And if you think about when someone's going through a health crisis, that's one of the most, intense, intimate sort of things that can happen at a human scale. And so all the sort of humanities practices are where we operate as a human. So doing anything to make that environment more comfortable and less stressful, I think it makes sense that would have an impact.
Yeah. We're getting folks from all across the country, so that kind of takes sponsors to put on a big event like this. Tell us about some of the sponsors making this happen.
Well, we're really thrilled to have Freeman Health Systems as our presenting partner. So without them, this really would not be happening. And then we also have some supporting partnerships as well. We have Dr. Lance and Mrs. Sharon Bashore. We have Kansas City University. And even the Caduceus Club here on campus is one of the supporters.
So lots of support. And talk to us about, there's going to be an art show as well.
Yes.
So an exhibit.
Actually, there's two art exhibits. So one's a call for submissions regionally. Actually, it might be national as well. And that's going to be held at the new Spivak Center for the Arts downtown Joplin. And that'll be up for the entire symposium run. And then we also have a on-campus art exhibition as well. And that one's going to be juried at the student level, graduate level, and then a professional or other level as well.
Excellent. Elmira, what do you hope people take away from this and the participants take away from this event?
I think the most important aspect can be the interdisciplinary part of that, how we share more in each other's field than we usually think about it. And I think for everyone, it has a lot to teach us, no matter if we are in the design field, if you're a software developer, if you're a medical person. I think it would be really good to learn about each other's work and use that as a interdisciplinary design.
Lots of benefits. Thank you both for being here and sharing more about it.
Thank you.
That concludes this edition of Newsmakers. Thanks to all our guests sharing information about the Artful Medicine Symposium happening October 19th through the 21st here on the campus of Missouri Southern State University. And thank you for watching.